The FTC has taken one last shot at Xbox, and these are the details you need to know. Yes, our friends over at the FTC are taking one last, I would say, meaningful shot at trying to somehow unwind the Xbox Activision deal. They put out a statement this week where they really kind of start to pick apart what Microsoft has done now post-acquisition to try to say, look, this is anti-consumer. We were right. You should unwind this deal, meaning the courts should unwind this deal. And so let's just dive into the details. So the thing that kicked all this off was, which everybody watching this is already aware, is that Microsoft shuffled the deck when it comes to their Game Pass subscriptions, right? There's a new Game Pass option at the low end. They raised the price for the Ultimate, and then there's a few other details, such as the minor thing of day one releases coming out of the lower priced options and jumping over to pretty much exclusively into that Ultimate bundle at the end of the day. And the FTC came out and said, bro, that is not legit. That is not what you agreed to. The court trials and everything else that we were saying, like, hey, this is what Microsoft is going to do. They're going to have a monopoly style power over the gaming industry. They will jack up the prices and ruin this for everybody. And the FTC is sitting there saying, we were right. And so this is the letter that the FTC put out, or I should say filed, at the end of the day. And so I'll just, not going to read the entire thing here, but I will go through a couple of the highlights that Microsoft, and this is per the FTC. It says Microsoft is discontinuing its $10.99 a month console Game Pass product. Users of that product must pay 81% more to switch to Game Pass Ultimate. For consumers unwilling to pay 81% more, Microsoft is introducing a degraded product, Game Pass Standard, at $14.99 a month. This product costs 36% more than console Game Pass and withholds day one releases. They go on to say Microsoft has reduced its investment in output and product quality via employee layoffs, and combined with these upcoming price increases, this is the hallmark of a firm exercising market power post-merger. Now, crucially here from the FTC statement, they say Microsoft promised that the acquisition would benefit consumers by making Call of Duty available on Microsoft's Game Pass on the day and time it released, with no price increases, my emphasis here, with no price increases based on the subscriptions, everything else all said and done. Now, that's a pretty, like, on the surface level, that's like a pretty damning accusation. FTC says, look, they reduced the quality of the product, they have raised the prices, and they've effectively sort of moved the goalpost of Call of Duty. And Call of Duty was a central point of the argument by the FTC throughout the entire trial. And they said, look, if you want to get it, you got to be paying more. And FTC sitting there standing up on their hill saying, this is exactly what we said would happen. And Microsoft is now doing this at the end of the day. The consumer has been harmed. That is effectively their statement. Now, Xbox is not going to just sit back and say, yeah, you know what? You're right. You got us. We're done. This is it. This is the thing. You know what? We did what we said we wanted to do. Okay, that's not even close. Xbox put out their own statement for this, refuting a lot of it, and it hits on a couple valid points as well at the end of the day. First off, Xbox / Microsoft goes and says the discounted or discontinued SKU did not offer multiplayer functionality that would have to be purchased separately. So the new SKU is in fact cheaper, which is correct. If you remember the original Game Pass SKU, you had to sign up for what we were previously referred to as Xbox Live Gold that enabled multiplayer, which would have increased the price beyond this new standard SKU. But they are correct in saying, like, look, that new SKU does not offer game one releases. So that is a fair and valid point. However, I think the key here is if you remember back to that trial, and this is how Microsoft kind of wraps up their response. The trial itself was more around the focus of Microsoft keeping Call of Duty off competing platforms, right? Remember, Call of Duty on PlayStation was like the central theme for all this, and that Microsoft would have dominant market power. It was not, and I repeat, it was not related to Game Pass and how much Game Pass cost and the subscription tiers. That was a critical differentiator in through all of this trial. And so Microsoft's point in their rebuttal to what the FTC has said is like, look, yeah, we are making changes. However, at the end of the day, the trial was not about Game Pass. The trial was about taking Call of Duty off competing platforms and giving us an unfair market advantage through that way. raising the price of Game Pass is not giving us an unfair advantage is effectively their argument. The one thing that I tried to dig through and could not find explicitly was backing the FTC claim that Microsoft would not raise the price based explicitly on the Call of Duty acquisition, the Activision acquisition. However, there's an easy out for Microsoft to say, hey, we're not raising the price from that because that's not why we're raising the price. All they got to do is say, look at every other streaming service. Go look at Spotify. Go look at Netflix. Go look at all these things. They are raising their prices and we're just keeping in line with what the market is doing. That is what we're doing. We did not raise the price because of Activision. We raised the price because all of our competitors are doing it. We feel that we can get away with this. Probably not how they should phrase it. We feel that it is the right adjustment for the market environments, and that is our counter argument. The question really becomes here is, if you remember, I believe the FTC and Xbox are not officially done in court yet. However, I don't see that this argument is actually going to tip the scales and all of a sudden a judge is going to unwind this massive deal. I don't foresee that happening. Not to mention the logistics would be really complicated at this point because, hey, all those people have been laid off. And so like to undo this would probably create more potential harm in the industry than anything else. However, I guess maybe they could try to convince them or force them to unwind the price increases. I'm not quite sure where this goes. I'm definitely not an FTC trial lawyer, even in my moonlighting phases. So it's just more of like, this is the argument that Microsoft has, and I think it's a valid argument. At the end of the day, they have not backed away from their commitments to bring Call of Duty to PlayStation. The interesting one we still haven't heard much about would be Call of Duty on Switch, although many people, myself included, also believe that, hey, this would be a next-gen Switch title, and so that is that. And they might even port over mobile, like if the hardware is not good enough to run the full-fledged title. So that is where it is. So in other dumb Xbox news that is floating around, especially in Europe, there's been a lot of conversation about how, hey, Xbox doesn't have a lot of marketing over there. And so the head of the European market segment did an interview with MarketWatch, and I'm not a professional in everything that I do in life, but, some good advice in life and generally is not to go public and blame your boss for not giving you enough money to do marketing. So this individual, to Marketing Watch, which is a large investment publication, says PlayStation regrettably outspends Xbox in Europe when it comes to marketing. They're blessed with marketing funds that we're just not able to enjoy, but that's totally fine. Flat continues. He says, we adopt what I would call a more fiscally responsible approach to media investments. We're not blessed with huge media budgets, so we have to be quite scrappy, really, and quite tenacious and fight for the funds that would probably go somewhere else. And there's been a lot of spin on that, but it's, again, Xbox marketing has come under a lot of pressure because it's not necessarily effective. They're not always effective. And so what this individual is saying is, like, in Europe, like, we're just not effective at marketing, which is a really loaded statement because you say, look, if we had more money, we would spend more money on marketing and we would do better. However, Phil Spencer and all of the team besides Xbox, not in Europe, might say, look, if you were showing that the money you are spending is returning an effective growth in Xbox, you'll get more money. Every company I've ever worked with, every boss I've ever had in life has said, if you can prove a good ROI, you will get more funds because it makes sense. And so if you're not proving that your marketing tactics are good, that's kind of an awkward position when you're the guy leading marketing. Like, think about that. Hey, our marketing sucks. We're not getting growth. I should get more money, but I'm doing bad at my job. I can't be the only one who sees that. Anyways, it's just a terrible soundbite to put out there. It's like, we just can't market in Europe because our marketing isn't as good, so we need more money. Like, it's just sort of the thing you don't want in a headline, but here we are. So the FTC stuff is far more important than the marketing dollars spent in Europe. I know everyone's easy, myself included, to criticize marketing efforts around the globe, but marketing is incredibly difficult. Although the latest stuff with Deadpool, that stuff was pretty good. But that was more, I believe, more of a U.S. initiative than, say, a European initiative at the end of the day. I'm curious what you guys think. Like, do you think the FTC is right in their reasoning? Like, I know nobody likes paying more for a Game Pass service. Like, it's just money out of my pocket literally every month, and so it doesn't always feel great, but I'm curious if people think that the FTC has a valid stance here, because you can kind of see it go both ways. I think the FTC's biggest problem, just to reiterate, is that they're moving the goalpost not from Call of Duty being available on third-party platforms. It's that they are raising the price of the Game Pass, which I don't think you can say is dominant in the market right now. I would not buy the argument that Game Pass is the dominant platform, even for Xbox. So Microsoft has the data. Maybe we'll see it come out. I'm not really holding my breath. But as always, make sure to keep it subscribed here, because only BS on this channel is me.